จะพยายามถ่ายพวกมันความเพิ่มกระจกความไม่ได้
Yeah, now we reach the chapel, which was added into that building in 1320, and we use this chapel for services. Catholic and Lutheran services are from the 50s of the 20th century. That means also in the socialist GDR time, we organized here services. And the Lutheran services begin every year on 4th of May, because on 4th of May in 1521, Martin Luther arrived here at the castle. But his stay here had a little previous history, and this prehistory began on 31st of October in 1517. On that day, Luther proclaimed his 95 Theses in Wittenberg. By help of these theses, he wanted to renew the institution Catholic Church. He didn't want to change the creed, he wanted to bring the institution of his Catholic Church back to the basics of the Bible. The same goal Elizabeth tried to achieve 300 years before. And these theses found very many friends and sympathizers, because these theses came from the historical view in the very right moment. Also the social circumstances were right for a change. And so these theses found very many sympathizers and became a danger for the Catholic Church and the government. And therefore, he was invited to the State Assembly in Worms to recant these theses, and he refused. And after that, he was punished from both sides. He was excommunicated. All human rights were taken away from him. He was outlawed. And that meant, in the reality, nobody was allowed to feed him, to house him, and everybody could kill him on the streets without any punishment. His life was in danger, and it was necessary to protect and to hide him. In the meantime, the owners of that territory changed. Thuringia became a part of Saxony, and the owner in the Luther time was Prince Elector Frederick the Wise from Saxony, and he was a very early sympathizer of Luther, especially on the field of indulgence. And indulgence was also Luther's main point of criticism, that you could pay money to the Catholic Church to become free from years in the purgatory. That was a smart idea. For both sides. For those who got that money, that was an excellent idea, but also for those who gave the money. The people in the medieval time were very religious, and they felt every day in their short lifetime guilty. Adam and Eve in the paradise, in every generation they felt that sin, plus the daily life problems. At that time, as in our days too, people sometimes did bad things about which they were afterwards ashamed. And they would like to make these bad things undone. And at that time they hoped that it will be possible to make these bad things undone by help of money. And so they spent a lot of money to the Catholic Church. Price lists existed in that time. A price for murder, a price for theft, a price for adultery. The Petersdom in Rome, for example, was constructed by help of that money. Wars were organized by help of that money. And Luther's opinion was that this wasn't written down in the Bible. Nobody is allowed to sell or to buy spiritual welfare. Only through belief, only through mercy, only through Jesus. These were the decisive statements of the Reformation. That was Luther's opinion. But the owner hoped that he could keep that money at his territory, and so he was a very early sympathizer of Luther in the fight against the indulgence. And he was a Prince Elector, a big frame and a smart political fox. And he sat face to face at that State Assembly in Worms to Charles V, the Emperor, 19 years old. That was his first trial. He had trouble with the French king. The Turkish troops besieged Vienna. He wasn't strong enough to fight against the Reformation too. And so the Prince Elector could make a deal with the Emperor. Luther could be granted free passage from the State Assembly back to Wittenberg, and on the way between Worms and Wittenberg, he was kidnapped out of the carriage and brought to this, in that time, insignificant castle. And that happened on 4th of May in 1521, round about 300 years after Elizabeth, Luther came here. And then he was living and working here for about 10 months in the present Luther room. And when this guided tour will be over, a small museum part is waiting for you, and the last room there will be his working room. Small, simple looking, it was a prison in his time. But in this small room, Martin Luther was unbelievably busy. He translated there, for example, in 10 weeks in the winter time, on 4th of December, he began there. He translated in 10 weeks the New Testament from original Greek into a living German language, which he at first created out of 18 different German dialects. He created in that room in 10 weeks our still used German writing language, and he created an excellent translation of the New Testament. And then the book printing existed already for 70 years. It was possible to print that, to distribute that. Then everybody should be able to read. So schools were founded, teachers were educated, and the pupils grew up by help of the Bible to learn reading. At that time they didn't need anymore a Catholic priest who should read that, translate that, explain that. Everybody became his own priest, no mediator between the believer and the Word of God. And that translation was copied into other languages, and therefore that working room of Martin Luther has attracted over the centuries millions of visitors, because every Lutheran church you can find around the globe was born in that small and simple looking room. And that's a real chilly feeling, to stand in that room and to think over which strong impulses started there and changed large parts of the world in thinking. And that room is waiting at the end of your tour. Have you ever been to Neuschwanstein? Neuschwanstein, Cinderella Castle, you can find that as a copy in Disneyland, and all Walt Disney films use the skyline of Neuschwanstein as a logo. It's a dream castle, and it was constructed in the middle of the 19th century. In that time, Germany was politically very divided in more than 300 small pieces. That was horrible for the economy, for the politics. 6 million of Germans emigrated in that time to America. And in that time, the people were looking a little bit sentimentally back into the strong, united, powerful medieval time. They adored the medieval time. Therefore, so many medieval castles were restored in the 19th century, or new dream castles as Neuschwanstein were constructed. And that man who constructed Neuschwanstein visited this castle in the middle of the 19th century, after the end of the first restoration. During this restoration, the following rooms were changed into that style in which the people imagined medieval rooms. And Ludwig II from Bavaria loved that style and copied several points for Neuschwanstein. But Neuschwanstein, it's funny to look at. It's a nice Cinderella castle, but has no history. And here you have the original castle and the style, and the next one, the style of the 19th century. Interesting blending. Yeah, and I ask you to follow me.